One of the best aspects of Monster Hunter is the sheer variety of ways to play the game. This is all thanks to the various weapons and the sheer amount of builds or sets that you can create. I'm Darcblade with an Anti-Alatreon build for the dual blades in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Now the main purpose of a anti-build is to create a set that is made to counter a specific monster in the game. In this episode we're looking at countering Alatreon, providing hunters with two builds to take on the blazing black dragon, one safe, one risky. The dual blades is one of the best weapons to take on Alatreon thanks to its fast combos that can really make use of elemental damage. So the first build is the risky build. This is a high elemental DPS build making use of the full Safi'jiiva armor set. With high affinity combined with either ice or fire weapons, this should easily allow hunters to power down Alatreon so long as they're going against the right Alatreon form. So for the purpose of this build I'll be demonstrating an ice build, which means we're going up against Alatreon starting in its fire phase. So for this build you'll need the Safi Crested Crown Beta, Chest Beta, Vambraces Beta, Belt Beta and Boots Beta. I'm also using a Frost Charm 5 and for my weapon I'm using the Kiar Dagger's Ice. This has a health regen augmentation and then elemental up augmentation. As for the custom mods I've gone for simply increasing the weapon's elemental rating. Now of course you can replace the Frost Charm 5 and the Kiar Dagger's Ice for the fire equivalents if you so wish. As for the specialist tools, these are down to personal preference. Now when it comes to the jewels you've got a fair few to play around with here. First of all you have to take a Frost jewel to max out the ice attack skill. This of course will be a Blaze jewel if you're going with the fire build. Afterwards I've gone for Expert jewels for critical eye, Vitality jewels for some health boost, Resistor jewels for the blight resistance skill, this is strongly recommended, a Sharp jewel for protective polish, Sprinter jewels for the marathon runner skill, and Evasion jewels to max out the evade window skill. Afterwards you have a few jewels to play around with, to which I've gone for Destroyer jewels and Protection jewels, which have also been included in my mantles. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which will be 200 health and 150 stamina when you're on a hunt and taking all your relevant consumables. You have an attack of 428 with white sharpness. You have 95% affinity, although mind you this is taken with True Dragon Vein Awakening buff in effect. Even though it's not quite 100%, it's still enough to deal a decent amount of damage. You'll have an ice elemental rating of 850 with a decent defense of 1081 that is strong against every element except for dragon. As for the skills, you have Critical Eye level 7. Critical Eye is a skill that increases our base affinity by a set percentage. You have Ice Attack level 6, which increases the ice rating and damage of this build. If you were using the fire weapons, this would be replaced with Fire Attack instead of Ice Attack. You have Evade Window level 5, which is a wonderful quality of life and defensive skill, especially for the dual blades. It basically increases the invulnerability frames when we perform dodge maneuvers, and as the dual blades naturally evade as part of their moves and combos, it really does add to your survival. You have Health Boost level 3, increasing our maximum health to that potential 200. You have Blight Resistance level 3, which completely negates all elemental blights on your hunter, which is exceedingly useful for Alatreon, unless you're making use of Coalescence, or you have a Hunting Horn user in your party that can negate blights via their melodies. Anyway, you also have Crit Boost level 3. Crit Boost is a skill that increases our damage when we crit a monster, but this only applies to the raw portion of our attack. Imagine our attacks being divided into two portions, one elemental, one raw attack. Critical Boost basically only increases the raw attack portion. Anyway, you have Marathon Runner level 3, another quality of life skill for the dual blades, which reduces the stamina drain when we're in demon mode. You have Part Breaker level 1, which can be potentially level 3 when we're wearing our mantles. Part Breaker allows us to break monster body parts more easily, and especially when we're taking into account Alatreon's horns, which we need to break every single time we can with this build, having Part Breaker is definitely useful. So with that in mind, always try to save your Glider Mantle, which has the Part Breaker jewels on, which will allow our Part Breaker to get to level 3. Save that for when it's the horn breaking phase. Anyway, you have Protected Polish level 1, which is a useful skill that allows us to put a protective coating over our sharpness gauge, preventing any sharpness loss for a small duration of time after we sharpened our weapon. Anyway, you have Critical Element level 1, which is like Critical Boost but applies to the elemental portion of our attacks. So when we crit a monster, we'll be doing more elemental damage. And then finally you have Divine Blessing level 2 when we're wearing our mantles, giving us a small chance at taking reduced damage when we take a hit from a monster. As for the set bonuses, we'll only have one of them, which is the Safi'jiiva Seal, True Dragon Vein Awakening. This is a buff that kicks in whenever our weapons are drawn. It provides us an extra 40% base affinity, an extra 150 elemental rating, and an extra 120 element rating if we were using a status weapon. But there is a major drawback which makes this a risky build, because every time we attack with this weapon, regardless of if we hit a monster or not, it will drain our health, leaving a small portion of red health on our health bar. But should we continuously attack a monster, after a certain number of hits, it will actually heal our hunter, negating the damage we just received. The downside is that if we get hit in between the heal being activated, it can really put us at risk of being one-shot. But that is the price you pay for such a wonderful set bonus. So there we have it, that is the risky dual blades Anti-Alatreon build I recommend. But of course there are pros and cons. The biggest pro for this build is its high elemental damage, easily able to power down Alatreon during a hunt so long as you're attacking. On top of that, it also has a few extra bonuses in terms of quality of life skills such as evade window, health boost, and especially blight resistance. The next pro is the buffs we get through the true Dragon Vein Awakening. This buff gives us a ton of DPS potential, meaning that we don't even have to make use of weakness exploit. But the major con for this build is that unfortunately, true Dragon Vein Awakening, whilst providing us many DPS buffs, also can leave us at risk thanks to the health drain. This is countered slightly by the health regen augmentation as well as health boost, but nonetheless it's something you need to be aware of. And the final con is that unfortunately we only have a small portion of white sharpness with this build, meaning that we have to sharpen often, and even with protective polish, it's going to be an issue during prolonged fights. But anyway, that is the risky dual blade Anti-Alatreon build. Let's move on to the next one, which is the safe Anti-Alatreon dual blade build. This build is more of a balanced Anti-Alatreon build, making use of the water element combined with armor and skills that give us more survivability while still providing enough DPS to power down Alatreon. So for this build you'll need the Tentacle Cowl Gamma, the Tentacle Cloak Gamma, the Tentacle Gloves Gamma, Tentacle Coil Gamma, and the Brachydium Breeze Beta. I'm also using a Master's Charm 4, and for my weapon I'm using the Kiar Daggers Water. These have an affinity increase augmentation and then an elemental up augmentation. As for the custom mods, I've simply gone for increasing the weapon's elemental rating. As for specialist tools, again these are down to personal preference. Now as for your jaws, first of all you want to go for stream jaws to max out the water attack, although you don't have to max this out. I've then gone for tenderizer jaws for weakness exploit, resistor jaws for blight resistance, vitality jaws for health boost, an evasion jaw for the evade window skill, destroyer jaws for some part breaker, a sharp jaw for protective polish, and finally a hard enduring jaw for the item prolonger skill. Finally for the mantles, I've gone for additional destroyer jaws and maintenance jaws. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which will be 200 health and 150 stamina when you're on a hunt and taking all your relevant consumables. You have an attack of 428 with white sharpness. You have 50% base affinity, which can be 100% so long as you're attacking monster weak points that have been tenderized through clutch claw attacks first. You have a water rating of 650, which can reach 800 once the true element acceleration buff kicks in, and you have a strong defense of 1115. That is strong against water and thunder, but unfortunately weak to the other elements. Now, as for the skills, you have critical eye at level 6, you have water attack at level 5. The reason we haven't gone for water attack level 6 is because the true element acceleration bonus does have a cap, and if we went to water attack level 6 it will put us above that cap. You have evade window level 5, health boost level 3, blight resistance level 3, weakness exploit level 3. Weakness exploit is a skill that increases our affinity so long as we're attacking monster weak spots, and should these weak points be tenderized through clutch claw attacks first, this increase to our affinity is even greater. Weakness exploit at level 3 can provide us a bonus 50% extra affinity. You have Marathon Runner level 3, Stamina Surge level 3. Stamina Surge is a decent quality of life skill for the dual blades as it allows us to recharge our stamina at a quicker pace. You have Evade Extender level 3, another byproduct and quality of life skill that increases the distance at which we dodge. You have Item Prolonger level 3, which is a skill that increases how long item buffs remain active, and this also works in conjunction with Protective Polish. Anyway, you have Recovery Speed level 2, a byproduct of the armor we're wearing, but allows us to more quickly recover our health when there is a red portion of health on our health bar. Anyway, you have Part Breaker level 1, which can be again level 3 when we're wearing our mantles, so the same principle and tactic applies. So once we're going to break Alatreon's horn, we'll make sure to use the glider mantle to get Part Breaker to level 3 to give us the biggest opportunity to break the horns. You also have Tool Specialist level 1, which can be potentially level 3 when we're wearing our mantles, which reduces the cooldown of our specialist tools. You have Protective Polish level 1, and you have Critical Element level 1. Finally, for the set bonus, you have Namiel Divinity, True Element Acceleration, which is a buff that kicks in when you've been attacking a monster constantly for around 5 seconds. When this buff kicks in, it will provide you a flat 150 elemental damage increase to your build, and this can cap out, which is the reason we haven't maxed out water attack. But there we have it, that is the safer Anti-Alatreon build I'd recommend for the dual blades. But even this has pros and cons. Its biggest pro is, again much like the other one, its DPS output. Whilst not the highest DPS out there, it's still strong enough to power down Alatreon. On top of that, it comes with a ton of quality of life skills. Evade window, health boost, blight resistance, marathon runner, stamina surge, evade extender, item prolonger, and so on. All of these add to your survivability and hopefully will make the hunt feel a little bit more easy. And the final pro is that this is a build that you can pretty much use to power down Alatreon regardless of what elemental state it's in. But unfortunately there are cons. Much like the previous build, one of its biggest cons is that it has sharpness issues. It only has a small portion of white sharpness, which you can burn through quite quickly with the dual blades, and even with protected polish, it means that you're going to have to sharpen during a prolonged fight. And finally, when it comes to the cons, is that unfortunately this build really only works with water weapons, as water attack is built into the armour. But regardless, it's a decent build for players who may not be confident enough to use the Safi Jiva armour set and the risky dual blade build. So there we have it. Those are two builds I can recommend for taking on Alatreon with the dual blades. Of course, as you farm the monster more and more, you will get Alatreon gear and weaponry, which will allow you to take on the hunt a little bit more easily, as they have high elemental attack and defenses. But until then, I hope these builds work out for you. So, until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you Anti-Alatreon builds for the dual blades in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.